Tonight we have another wonderful program on the emerging issue that will be facing the county board in the months ahead, the information infrastructure of the future. How can and should Arlington maintain its leadership in the modern world with information infrastructure? I don't know if you know what that term is. It was new to me before we started planning this program. At the end of the evening, I hope that you will have a much better understanding of what we're talking about. Information infrastructure is quite literally the heartbeat, the bloodstream of information within our county, within our community, and really the world. I don't know if you know it, but Arlington is one of 3 finalists out of the world communities leading the world in the information infrastructure. That is the vehicle on which information goes.
It's really an enormous pleasure to be here. And let me get out of the way. Thank you. I have, to some degree, worked with as a colleague in a variety of other capacities with Jack and some of the other gentlemen here this evening for many years in Arlington, and it's a great pleasure to be in Arlington and to be involved in some of your technology projects. And I will start by saying that Link was exactly right about the degree to which Arlington has been far ahead of many other American communities, most other American communities, in understanding the value of communications technology for a range of different needs: public safety, government services, consumer use, economic development, education, incredibly important in this community. And I'm going to, tonight, take just a few minutes to talk about what these technologies are that we talk about today. When you hear people talking about not only the kinds of services they're buying at home, but the things that are necessary for this county to prosper and for our nation to prosper, what is the technology they're talking about? And I'm hoping that I can explain some of the lingo, the buzzwords, and so that it's understandable to all of us as we hear the other speakers talk about how Arlington is working to make sure that these technologies are all available here. And as I do it, I will hopefully give you a national view of what's happening in other communities, and to some degree as well, an international view. So I saw a couple people saying, I can't hear. Can you hear me now? Is this working? Okay, good, thanks. How about this? Can you see this? Unfortunately, I think it may not all be clear. All right. What we're talking about tonight is a very specific technology called broadband, or a class of technologies called broadband. And I want to start by talking about what broadband is. It's not our computers, it's not our devices in our homes, it's not our cell phones, it's not the applications or the services we use. It's the core infrastructure that are in our roads and that travel over our airwaves. It's the equivalent of our roads, our highways. It's the modern equivalent of what the canal system was in an earlier American age, what the highway system was, what the railroad systems were. It's the basic infrastructure that crosses America, goes up and down throughout America, and enables us to communicate among ourselves and with the world. Think of it as the pipes. We're not really talking about the water tonight. We're not talking about getting the services or what the services are or how we develop them. We're talking about how we put those pipes in so that we can bring the water into our schools and into our homes. So pipes, not really services. That's the first thing. And then let's talk about what those broadband pipes are. How do they differ from each other and why they're important? So let me start with this. When you use broadband, think of narrowband is the very slow way that we all used to get to the internet, way back in the mid-1990s. I actually didn't mean to be funny, but I'm feeling my age. I am not what is called a digital native. I came to the internet in my 20s. Anyway, Way back in the 90s, at the advent of the commercial internet, when it passed from being something that was used by academics in universities and people in the military and in the research community, and became something that we all used at work, at home, and for other uses, what we were using was something called narrowband. And our old phone systems that went way back to the late 1800s had some technologies put on them so we were able to communicate using data, not just hearing voices. So we could send email, so we could look at websites. And that was a technology called dial-up. And here is that technology, the technology of the 1970s, 80s, using the networks of the 1890s. And in some parts of America, in a lot of parts of America, they're still using this technology. And this illustration shows you what would happen if you had a 5 gigabyte network backup file. It doesn't really matter what that is, but a pretty important application if you're a small business, let's say. Something is pretty important, so you're backing up your equipment in case there's some kind of an emergency or a flood or a fire at your facility. And if you're using dial-up, if you're using that old technology, that many Americans still are, red shows how long it would take you to send that up to the internet over that connection. Blue shows how long it would take you to pull it down from the internet over that old dial-up connection. Just about 20 days sending it up, 12 days bringing it down. The technology that Arlington County is focused on, that it has been investing in for 15 years and that it's been deploying and that it's now thinking about moving to the next generation, is this, but better. Oh, sorry, I'm in the way. Fiber optics, right there at the bottom. Fiber optics, a completely different technology, the technology of the 21st century, with equipment to make it happen. You can do the same thing in less than a minute. And the kind of equipment that you can then put on that fiber optics, which is developing all the time, will cut that down in a year or two to a few seconds. And that's important because soon we're not going to be talking about 5 gigabytes. We're going to have much bigger needs, far greater needs. That's the trajectory of technology. That's where we were and where a lot of rural America still is, even for their schools, even for their libraries, even for their government buildings, to say, and certainly for homes. Not everywhere, but lots of places. That's where Arlington is, and it's going better. And why is this important? Well, before I get to why it's important, because that's probably self-evident, let me tell you about what's in the middle, because these are important technologies. This technology, which is called DSL, also comes to us over our phone network. And please stop me, anyone, if I'm not making sense in terms of discussing the technology. I know there's a wide range of different levels of knowledge in the room, and I want to be sure that what I'm saying is useful. But this technology is what we get in large parts of America over our phone networks. This is what we get at our homes, and in many schools in America, and in many small businesses. My little small business, which, by the way, is in Montgomery County in a very well-served area, but still, that's what I can get. I can't get this. It takes me 90 minutes over my cable modem, over the cable system, to send it up to the network, uploading, and 9 minutes to bring it down, the same size file. And here maybe is the most important point. These two categories, which are still pretty powerful, but nothing like fiber, nothing like fiber. That's the most modern wireless technology. This is emerging technology. This is the best, most brilliant stuff that our best scientists and engineers are developing. This is incredible stuff. But it is the nature of wireless that it's not fiber. It can't do what that technology can do. It can't do what you can do to your schools and your libraries and your government buildings and public safety facilities in Arlington because this community has invested in fiber. And I don't want to denigrate wireless. It's incredibly important. It's essential for public safety. You can't have fiber, which is a wire, can't have it to the police car. You have to have wireless. But this is not the same. So when people say, we don't need to think about this, we don't need to worry about fiber, not the case. Wireless is not the same, and it can't possibly keep up. This is a future-proof investment. It's incredibly capable. Now the point about why does it matter? Well, remember what I said about canals and railroads and highways, the engines of our economic development in the 19th and 20th centuries. That fiber is the engine of our economic development in the 20th century, 21st century. That's my second statement. It always has to do with age and timing. I have a birthday coming up. It must be that I'm feeling it. Why do I feel this so strongly? And I'm getting the word about timing. Thank you. Very good point. Here's sort of the key thought about this. What you have here, this fiber, with all of that capability, that technology of the 21st century, is what economic development professionals throughout the United States in a recent survey said was essential for getting businesses to locate in their locations, particularly larger businesses, but small ones as well. And as a small business owner, I can tell you it's absolutely essential. I would never locate anywhere that didn't have it if I were to relocate. It is how students communicate with each other and how they're able to get very big data files and video from all over the world. It's foundational to what we do in our economy, and it's foundational to what we do in our democracy. And one of the ways we know this is because our competitors are doing it. China is building that technology as fast as it is building new cities and coal-powered power plants. China has more fiber to the home, meaning that fiber optics all the way into the home, which is something that you have here because of Verizon, but is available in very little of the United States. China has more of that today than the United States does, more fiber to the home connections. They're building this technology as fast as they can. All of our competitor nations, the developed nations of Africa, are building that technology. Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. I could go on. And the Western European democracies are doing the same thing. This is the technology of the future. It's the foundation of our economic growth. It's the foundation of our future in healthcare. It's the way in which we will be able to not only allow our healthcare professionals to communicate with each other and to guide each other from remote locations where expertise may be located remote from where the patient is, but it's also the way in which people will be able to age in their homes because they will have the technology to be in constant contact with their doctors and won't have to be close to their doctors or their other healthcare professionals. I love that application, by the way. I can tell some really amazing stories about that one because I think it's an incredibly important way to think about why that technology matters in our lives. I think I'm close to the end of my time, so I'm going to stop there, but I guess I will just finish by saying that if you had me back, not in 5 years, not in 10 years, but in 1 year, and I updated this document, you would see that number would have shrunk exponentially already. This is not a slow-moving field. This is something that is happening incredibly fast. And Arlington is moving with it because of the investment you have already made in that technology. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to be here, actually, to see a number of old friends. I hope you all got your handout. There's going to be a quiz later on the, you have to list 25 applications. But actually, it is interesting to be back here. I was in Adelaide, and it was, there were 5 days over 100 degrees, and so coming back to winter is a little bit disorienting. But it is great to be here, and I'm going to start with answering a question, actually, that John Richardson and Link and Ed Nolan raised. Why do we care about this? Well, the first answer is big bucks. We actually are getting a negotiation with Comcast to renew their franchise. And that's up in 2013. And it's been projected by experts that Comcast stands to gain $1 billion in revenues through this renewal process, just for their video services, not including internet. In Arlington. And the point is, they have been offering some important services to Arlington for quite a few years that they actually agreed to get the franchise. And this is something called INET that supports the county and the schools, public access, and AIM, our public access organization. And the thing is, this is a service that's worth millions. And so if we aren't able to negotiate with Comcast an agreement, this could affect our tax base, our revenues, our taxes, and so on. So big bucks is one of the answers. The other answer, which Joanne was exploring, is will we be truly an intelligent community, and will we be first or second rate in terms of our education, our county services, our smart planning. Nearly 40 years ago, we started smart planning here. I was actually on the Long Range Planning Commission with Joe Holy and Joe Fisher that started that 40 years ago. And now we are having to look another 40 years as to what the Arlington of the future is going to be about. So right now, we have 100 sites that are connected for schools, parks, county facilities through INET. We have a new telecommunications master plan that Rob Billingsley is going to be talking about in a few minutes. And the key focus of this is something called CNET. And Link said, what the heck is CNET? Well, CNET is sort of an evolving concept. You can call it the county network, the community network, or what have you. But the point is, it is the intellectual infrastructure of the future for Arlington County, and it will be vital to our growth, our attraction of businesses, of keeping the Pentagon and the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency and other high-tech organizations thinking Arlington is the home for them. And so we're really talking about investing for the future, for the county and the schools, and creating that intellectual infrastructure for the future. And we're also, at the same time, thinking about new ways of doing business, that we are using increasingly the social media, the Facebook and the Twitters and so on, and the county and school agencies, without broadband and without media skills, will be seriously wanting. And this is, in my view, and I'm going to be talking to county board members and Mary Hines Place initiative about how broadband is a part of the Arlington Way. We have over 40 citizen advisory commissions and groups. We have the Civic Federation involving 100 residential, civic, and public interest groups, Leadership Arlington, and the Committee of 100 and the Chamber of Commerce and other things that make our county different and special. And I believe that accessible broadband media, interactive social media, INET, CNET, responsive security systems like Arlington Alert, AIM, public access TV, social media, these are the new ways of the Arlington Way, that this is the way we will really communicate and really get the government and our citizens involved and the businesses involved with the Arlington of the future. So what is the future? This is a beach in China. Did you know that there are 160 cities in China with more than 1 million population? If you took Guangzhou and add all the cities that are linked together, that's 41 million people. And we're looking at cities of the future, well, be 100 million people. In that environment, broadband and communications will be the vital infrastructure that will make things work. We are increasingly moving from data rates that are not in terabytes, which is 1 trillion bits of information or 1 trillion bytes of information, to petabytes, which is 1,000 trillion bytes of information. And we are adding, if you will, hundreds of petabytes of information to our global database each year. In the year 2100, there will be 12 billion people in the world with cities as large as 100 billion people. And broadband networking will be key to the economy, the security, and the vitality of those cities. This is just showing you the sort of some of the cities of the world. This is Tokyo and so on. But what's not so important as looking at Tokyo is looking at some countries like Delhi and Jakarta, Lagos, Karachi, that will grow by 40% up in just the next 4 to 5 years. These cities, without these kinds of technologies, are going to be increasingly in trouble, and that megacities is one of our challenges of the future. For the first time, the majority of all people on Earth live in cities, about 54%, and it probably will be 60% by 2020 and keep growing. Tom Friedman once said that the great cities of the future will be built on broadband, intellectual creativity, and global class universities. And the question is, will Arlington be one of those cities or not? In the 1970s, as I mentioned earlier, as president of the Civic Federation, I was on the Long Range Planning Commission, and we developed something called smart planning for Arlington. I think that we need to do the same for smart broadband growth, or be left behind by cities like Austin, Texas, Columbia, Ohio, or even Tyson Corner, because many people do feel that that's the true competition that Arlington is looking at as Metro comes there and broadband is provided. This is a book that I did on designing better, smarter, more sustainable and secure cities with my colleague Dr. Indu Singh, and that we really do think that some of these things are really vital to our future. So what do we need to do? We need a joint county and school investment plan that covers the intellectual structure, and I think Rob is going to be telling us about a breakthrough that's happened this week that we've been working on with our joint commission. We do have Dr. Salah with us tonight, Ghafouri. And the acceptance, the fact that we will have to have bonds and capital financing to support this kind of broadband information structure for the future. So it's not just streets, sewers, schools, parks. Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, and other have already moved to do capital financing for their intellectual infrastructure. We do need broadband, and this involves more integrated planning, more civic involvement, and also more energy efficiency. That, to me, the two things that are happening in Arlington today that are vital to where we will be 40 years from now is the initiative led by Jay Fassett on energy efficiency and a new energy plan that's modeled after what's been done in Copenhagen, and the, if you will, negotiation with Comcast for iNet to support public access, iNet, and AIM, and it is not too late for you to get in the message to Rob Billingsley that we need these resources and get it on the record that these are vital resources for our community. So with that, I'll be back to Link.
Marymount is, brings back a lot of good memories for me. I used to live just a few blocks from here when I was a resident in Arlington. Took a few courses in information technology and management at the graduate school here, and it's a really good school. I need to keep it up here. Okay. I feel like it's a lollipop in front of me. This is the Arlington vision. The Arlington way kind of comes from this. I lived here for several decades, and I can tell you I see a lot of Arlington in this statement. I've highlighted a number of words in here which you will hear later on, so sort of take note of some of those that are highlighted because it is really what the CNET is going to be doing for Arlington. Broadband in Arlington today, I'm going to discuss three things. I'm going to tell you what we've been doing with it. Influences, some of which you've already heard about growth and the pressures on trying to meet the demands of the use of this kind of technology, as well as what we're doing to meet those challenges. You heard a little bit about the institutional network. Broadband in Arlington consists of a number of networks. This is just a few of them. I just put the list up here for you to see that I'm not going to talk about all of these. We'd be here all night. But I'm going to talk in more detail about two of them. The first one, and also the second from the bottom, the intelligent transportation system, which is now under construction. This is what the institutional network looks like. I tried to bring some engineering drawings, but I used my best crayons for this. So, what you see here in the blue is a representation of the county network as it exists now in fiber provided by Comcast iNet. The green is a representation of the schools. As you can see, it's really not one network, it's really two networks. So that means it's a little more complicated to support. There's something about this that may not be obvious. If you want to add a new place to bring the fiber to, you're going to have to run fiber some distance. It could be a few blocks, it might be miles, costing many hundreds of thousands of dollars to add new sites, which we cannot afford. So it is limited in its capacity to grow. Also, there are many points of failure along the lines here. If you take out, and it happens, we have buses catch on fire, burn up cables above them. We have what we call backhoe incidents where somebody digs up a fiber or a chainsaw goes through a fiber. You can see that if you took out something along here, a number of sites would be lost along the way. So what we've been doing today, and you see some of the applications on the backs of your sheets there, but it's important, just standard business applications are accessible through the iNet across the county, email, website servers, that sort of thing. I bring in the voice over IP here. IP is Internet Protocol. It has to do with the international standard for digital communications. It's a convergence. Before we had a separate telephone system from the network system for data. Now they are converging, and because we can use these standard formats for data. Schools has a marvelous network, but it's an analog network for video, and they can see channels from the classroom that Comcast provides, but also they can broadcast from one school into their own classrooms and from one school to another school. It's a very sophisticated network. There's video conferencing that we do within the county and also with our regional partners for various reasons, with Fairfax, Falls Church, and others. The traffic surveillance. Now this is where that other network I mentioned comes into play. This is the intelligent traffic or transportation system, and you already have that now. It's a copper network that connects all of the street or the stoplights in the county. And if you can imagine all of the traffic that goes from Virginia directly into DC and comes out of there daily, twice, is going through Arlington. It has to be managed. It has to be timed. Things are changing. You saw some, if you took the bar chart that we had here and you turned it upside down, that would represent what has been happening with demand. We're being told that the demand for bandwidth is growing at a rate now, but experts are telling us it's 35% per year. It could be even more in a few more years. That's a lot of bandwidth that's getting eaten up, and it has to be met and carried. Mobile technology, there's a mobile explosion, right? We're all getting these phones. Now we're no longer just phone users. We're actually nodes on the international network. We've got citizen photojournalists who are telling us what's going on in the streets of Syria and Egypt with these devices, and that's bandwidth. It requires an awful lot of bandwidth to transport that much data. Also, things are going into the cloud. I mentioned before the kinds of systems that we have for email and websites and the county's business with finances and accounting. All of that is now being put onto services that aren't in the county. So if something happens, God forbid, to a building and it burns or something, all that data is preserved. All of your records are preserved. Unless you want to be anonymous and off the grid. But no way it's going to happen. So this future network that we call CNET, I'm thinking of having a contest. We need a new name. I don't like this name. But we're going to take the the traffic system that is a fiber network that's going to go to all those traffic lights and use that as our core. And think of it as a trunk of a tree. And we're going to have branches that go off to the various sites that it needs to get to, whether it's a school or a government building or a park, some other facility. And because of the nature of how we're designing it, it's going to be sustainable, it's going to be survivable, it's going to be secure. Those are some of the buzzwords we had in the beginning. It will be owned by the county. Instead of paying a monthly bill to a Verizon or a Comcast to use the channels for sending the data, we're going to own it. We're going to run our own business of transporting, as we do now, a lot of that. And also, this is being built without your local tax dollars. Much of it is funded by federal government as administered by the VDOT, as well as some older bond issues that where we still had some funds for it. This is the new system. This is phase 1. It says March 2012. That's really happening. We've already started to test some of the segments successfully, and it probably will be done before March. It's happening very quickly. Again, it's federally funded. It's the refreshment of an existing system, and this will form the backbone. Now, you remember that INET drawing had 2 circles for 2 center places where the network is managed. We're having multiple hubs, multiple sites where we will control how the flow of information goes. That's important because now when you cut something here, you're only cutting a much smaller part of the network. And in fact, the way it's being designed, you probably won't lose any sites because each site will go to 2 hubs to ensure that there's always a backup connection. This is phase 2, done. It will be done, and it's financed, and it will be done in about a year. Phase 3 finishes the job up in this part of the county. Well, we don't, okay, that's a good question, and the reason why it's good is because right now, the county is talking to VDOT and to the federal government. We're working on a design. I can't say when, because if they give us the funds, then we'll know when. But we've got to keep our fingers crossed. It's very likely, but I don't want to jinx it. Now what we're going to have is an advanced transportation system. It's not just going to control the timing of lights. It's going to have digital signage. You'll know what's going on before you get there with traffic. It'll also have more traffic cameras to help control the flow of the traffic through Arlington. This is a new term, SCADA. It sounds like something out of a horror film. But it's really the control of important and vital systems like the water flow. We have sensors of water flow at the pumping stations. Right now it's copper, but we can do more with environmental controls throughout the county when we have that on the system. Educational programs, distance learning, more interactivity among teachers and students, that's going to be possible with more high-speed wireless hotspot opportunities, because when you have hubs throughout the county, adding on another link is not going to have to take you across the county. It's only going to take you a few blocks or a few thousand feet. It's much more affordable to expand on a network like this. Now, all of those networks that you saw, the 5 or 6 networks in the beginning, we can now manage them as one network. That means one set of staff, one set of standards, one set of training to keep it all going. And I mentioned how we could add sites more easily. It's expandable, and it'll accelerate how efficiently we do things. It'll help economic development, our educational system. That's the learning part of those buzzwords you saw in the beginning. And help our public safety developments as well. And again, we're going to be using non-county resources for much of it. And I've got DVP at the bottom here. You can't see that in the back of the room. The Dominion Virginia Power Company is now working with us. Every time they dig a new trench, and maybe you've seen some of these 10-foot deep trenches, she has, and they're letting us share that space. Most of the cost of doing this is not the fiber, it's not the engineering, it's digging the hole. Something as simple as that is the most expensive part, about 80 to 90% of the cost. So there's your buzzwords. This is what we think it will be. It'll be inclusive, definitely world-class, secure, sustainable learning. I think I hit all of those. Oh yeah, and it'll serve your neighborhoods because we can get those hubs out into the county. Well, I guess I have to stop. So the great thing about fiber, it is a technology that's proven. It's here in the present. It's going to be there in the future. And we look forward to doing an awful lot more. There's a lot to tell. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you here, but there's much to be done, and thank you for your time.
Now if I can invite the speakers up to the table here, and it's your turn to ask questions to each of these speakers.
My name is Carl Van Newkirk, and if I understood you correctly, the CNET is going to be built on the traffic control system that is currently in. Now, as I was thinking about that, it occurs to me that traffic is a metropolitan area-wide problem, not just an Arlington problem. So, question is twofold, really. How is this going to tie in with traffic control outside of the boundaries of Arlington? And also, traffic is intimately connected with I-66, which I believe is highly instrumented already, and with Metro, which also has the same need. So is that all going to tie in?
Well, there are certainly opportunities. Can you hear me? Yeah. There are opportunities to interconnect. I want to say this very carefully, and that is that there are some of the roads you mentioned, like I-66 and other main arteries, are actually managed by VDOT. And our Department of Environmental Services does work closely with them. I do not know the details, and I'm not going to pretend to know the details of how the systems may or may not interconnect. But we do have, one of the networks that I had up there but I didn't talk about was something called NCRNet, National Capital Region Network, and we're just beginning to do some sharing applications with Fairfax, with other jurisdictions nearby. A really powerful application that I want to talk about that is not traffic, but is under development right now, and they're doing some trials of it, is something we call CAD to CAD, the computer-aided dispatch of police and fire vehicles on a geographic basis. Now, if you can imagine, when you call 911 and someone answers the phone, traditional ways, then they have to call around and try to find the closest vehicle or fire station or whatever it is to where you live and get them there as quickly as possible. Our fire chief recently said that if they have a report of a heart attack, they must get to it within the first 6 minutes. Minutes are unbelievably valuable, whether it's an incident like that or a fire. This automated system, we had a CAD system within the county. Fairfax also has one. Some of the other regional jurisdictions have them. They will now talk to each other directly. And we can save as much as 2 minutes off the response time. And if it's your house that's burning, or if it's a heart attack that you have, every minute is going to make a big difference. So there is coordination with mutual aid agreements already in some areas that I know about. I'll try to find out the answer to your question. If you want to grab my card and send me an email or give me a call, I'll try to find out what we're doing in conjunction with some of the other jurisdictions with traffic.
I'd just like to add that today we do have interconnected more than 20 jurisdictions for emergency communications, and that is operational. We also have the Emergency 911 Center that actually operates what Russ is talking to, but there's thought to maybe on a regional basis have the backup maybe in Fairfax or some other jurisdiction. Right now it's backed up across the street, which is not necessarily the best arrangement. So there are a lot of regional things that are in play.
Good. Joanne?
As the one of the big fans of fiber here, I would just add that regional, national capital region infrastructure, NCRNet, that both gentlemen were speaking about, because it is fiber, it interconnects all of our jurisdictions in the region over fiber, and because of that capability, it can do CAD to CAD, it can do emergency communications. when the right relationships are in place and organization among the transportation folks, that network will meet all of their needs too. Because it's fiber, it has this enormous capacity. We will never run out of space on it. As long as we can cooperate with each other and work together, the network will be there to support us. And that's why I think it's such an important future-proof investment.
Just to add, though, it's not all wireless for the future, that the FCC and actually Congress right now are wrestling with what they call the 900 megahertz allocation. And this would be a very broadband wireless capability that would be able to provide broadband capabilities to fire and police and other facilities. And the thing is, even that will have to have a fiber backbone to connect the towers together. But the thing is, there is a whole lot of technology out there for emergency and for other services, and this is part of the future.
Next question.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Pedowitz. We've talked a lot in the setup tonight about how the telecom and network technology we have is radically different from what was in place as recently as 10, 20 years ago. As Arlington County is looking to make a major capital investment in this, what planning is in place to ensure that 20 years from now we're not lamenting the existence of all this 2012 technology that's holding us back? And looking beyond Arlington, are there innovative things that other jurisdictions around the world are doing to ensure that they have that ability to move forward with new innovation?
Fiber optics are universally understood as the holy grail in communications technology. Arlington is very much thinking that way as it deploys this network. As Joe said, the fiber forms the core of any wireless network. It's like building that road that we keep using for many, many years, but in many ways, the road is not a very good analogy. Even a superhighway is not a good analogy, because in order to make the analogy work, you have to imagine that road, when you change the cars on the road, will expand infinitely to take as many cars as you can possibly build, because that's really how fiber works. It is infinitely scalable. And so when you say, is there thought that's gone into whether this is an investment for the future, I would say absolutely. It is understood as a future-proof investment. I'm going to be 44. We will still be using technology over fiber for the rest of my life. There's no doubt in my mind. I say that as a professional. And I think that's pretty widely understood. Now, we'll have different electronics that we put at the ends of that fiber, so we're achieving bigger and bigger speeds and capacity all the time. We'll have new applications. We'll have new ways that we use it and new things we do with it. But the roads, once they're in, we've got them. They will expand with us. Excellent question.
Let me just add, though, we in Arlington have been involved in something called the Intelligent Community Awards process, and there were 450 cities around the world in this process, and we've been fairly successful to make it into the final rounds. But one of the things that came out of this is that there was this group up in New York, the Intelligent Community Forum, that now has this database from 450 cities around the world who are leading technology. And we have been joining into that process, and we now have created a sister relationship with Stockholm, which was one of the winners in this regard. And Terry Holzheimer, who's head of the Economic Development Group, has said that's been very helpful in terms of a whole host of things of planning for the future. But part of it is making sure that we are tied into the cities around the world, Seoul, Korea, which was one of the winners, Stockholm, and so on. So we really are plugged into this international process, as well as having state-of-the-art consultants helping us as well.
I want to get to the real nub of your question, which is what is the county doing? And I'll tell you what we've done. In the design, we are using best practices. The answer to the question of how do you plan or future-proof with a technology like this, when it comes to fiber, the plan is, one, get more fiber. So we put not just, right now the iNet has 12 fibers going to each site. Now while the arrangements are going to be different in how it's laid out, the basic backbone is over 250 fibers. So we're going to have a lot of fiber, and so we won't run out of that. The next question is, well, what if it's not fiber? What if it's something totally different that has to run between the buildings? Well, we put more empty conduit into the ground, so whatever comes along, we will pull that through. Remember, the greatest cost is not the wires or the cable, it's the digging of the ditch. And it will be dug.
Next question.
Nick Lutch, is it on?
Yep.
Everything that's been handed out tonight and what you've talked about references one corporation, Comcast.
Mm-hmm.
Is there no suitable competition for Comcast? Is this going to be a competitive bid?
Competitive bid. Well, yes, there actually was a competition to build the CNET. The contracts went out with an RFP. A company named Chesapeake is building it, but we're going to run it. We talk about Comcast a lot because they, as part of the deal with the franchise that expires in a little bit, we were able to get this marvelous facility. It was state-of-the-art when we got it. We've learned a great deal about doing things over that network. Verizon's deal is different. It did not provide us with a similar iNet. They gave us other terms in the agreement. These things are negotiated. There are pluses and minuses, and everyone is just a little bit different. It's kind of like buying a house. You know, every house negotiations just is very different from the next door neighbor's deal. So it's that's how it went with this. And so the reason why you see Comcast a lot is they played a big role in helping us get this fiber and help us whenever it breaks. Part of the deal is they fix it. So it's been a good relationship. Huh?
How much does it break?
Oh, not very often. I think we've had like 3 or 4 in the last 10 years that were, and they were fixed within 24 hours.
I think it should be clear that we are anticipating that iNet and CNET will exist together at least for the foreseeable future. So we're not seeing this as an alternative, as a supplement. But eventually, you know, CNET may become the prime provider.
All right. And next there.
Phil needs a mic.
Phil Barnhart. My question has to do with, I guess, maintenance of the system. We had a car hit a telephone pole out in front of our house yesterday, so I was out of power, I was out of fiber, I was out of copper telephone line. I'm still without. Who is supposed to be doing the maintenance, physical maintenance on the system? Is it the county?
Well,
Or is it the contractor? Because there's going to be some, so like you say, somebody's going to plow when I'm out one time. Or is it enough redundant as a network to take care of most of this problem?
well, currently, if you're talking about your retail service to bring services to the home, we won't be building that. But, oh, good. So what happens is right now, the companies are responsible for their own cables. And they have, as part of the agreements, they have to fix them within certain time limits. And so they do that. We fully expect that when we have our own fiber that we will have to budget for staff to support and maintain whatever we build. One of the things that will be different, though, is most of their fiber is running around on top of poles. This is the opposite. Almost all of that core of the intelligent transportation system will be underground. You could still take a backhoe to and disturb it that way, but that happens much less often than something that is as vulnerable as a wire on a pole.
Next. Max.
Hi, Max Scruggs. You said, one of you toward the end of your statement, that they would be going into the neighborhoods. How long do you expect it will take to get into the third block north from Wilson Boulevard on North Liberty Street?
Liberty, that's in the
That's
third
gonna take
alphabet.
That's going to take a lot of
Right.
digging, isn't it? Backhoes?
Liberty, that's north of Ballston, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually where the first leg of the CNET is going. In fact, it's already gone through there. The getting out to, it will be out first to like park facilities or recreation centers and places like that. We won't be able to have wireless on every block, but in facilities like that, if there is something like that in the neighborhood, it's actually possible to do something like that sooner rather than later. At this moment, we don't have a wireless plan for wireless as specific as who's going to get it in what part of the county when. That's also something that does cost resources that are not covered by the federal funding at this point. So it's possible to do it. I just can't tell you when.
But I think it should be clear that right now there are a number of wireless sites. There's one in Shirlington at 100 megabits, I guess, per second, and also along the RB corridor, the courthouse and the library and so on. So these can be added flexibly. As it's said several times, you get the pipe and the capability, then you can add capability as the demand is there and as the budget allows.
Okay, one last question. Yes, sir.
George Towner, from what I understand you've been talking about government-owned facilities. That's what you're building. It's not something that each of us is going to access. Am I correct in that?
If you access it, it would be at a school or a government facility, or it would be like Joe mentioned, in Shirlington, we already have something that is available to any resident who wants to use it.
Well,
it's in wireless.
That's in wireless, right?
Yeah. Right. But let's be clear, it is a bit confusing. In other words, right now, what is at issue is the franchise for Comcast going forward from June 2013 forward, maybe for a 10 or even longer extension. And this is for services to everybody in the community. And part of that negotiation is, will they continue to provide INET? Will they continue to provide support for public access and AIM and what have you? And so their franchise will be to serve everybody. And of course, Verizon has an existing franchise that goes for some time forward, but at some point we will also have to renegotiate the Verizon service to everybody. So we're really looking at two things. One is fiber or cable TV and internet service to everybody. And then we're also talking about this CNET and INET that's for the schools and the county and parks and recreation. But there is a relationship, and these things are tied together.
And but they're still the same. What I'm saying is those are public facilities. And the other thing is that the wireless, in the initial diagram we saw, was the second slowest of the thing. So what I'm hearing is that the fiber road, there's very little of it, and it's all for the government and very little for us.
The way I would look at it is the county is not building publicly owned facilities to your home or your businesses in terms of fiber. And frankly, speaking nationally, and I do this all over the country, Arlington with Verizon Fios and Comcast cable modem service is pretty much as well served as any community in America, more than most, in terms of what you have to your home. It's not what we'd all like. We'd all like to see a lot more competition in that market. It's unfortunate that it has not developed in a bigger way, but the county's not talking about building to that. but it is for you, because what it is doing is it is delivering to the schools and the libraries and all the places that your tax dollars support significantly better services at significantly lower cost than you could ever buy on the private market. When I showed you that diagram, a lot of the schools and libraries in America are up toward the top of that diagram. You guys are down at the bottom and better, and by bottom I mean you are state of the art, and the county is going to deliver that over CNET at remarkably low cost relative to what you would otherwise be paying for significantly inferior services. So from the standpoint of community interest, I'd say it's a pretty important program.
And we're really talking about millions of dollars. In other words, if we were paying commercial rates for what is provided by INET to the schools and the county and what have you, we'd be talking about millions of dollars per year, and over 10 years extension, we're talking about 50, $60 million. So this is a tax issue or a revenue issue for the government. So if you have not been a part of these various working groups and public forums or taken surveys, I urge you, can you still send in to this, Rob, that go online and say you support
tomorrow
the continuation of INET, that it's important to you, figure out how it's important to you, and get it on the record, because the only way that we can demand this from Comcast is to have on the record the public supports it.
The last questioner has been patiently waiting in the corner.
Hi, my name is Gail Dennis. There is a building known as the Cherrydale Firehouse that, despite the fact that there was bond money available, took approximately 21 years to build. We have finally got the building open, not where we wanted it, but it is open. Listening to your three very excellent presentations, you mentioned that this was going to be funded through bond money. Well, we know Cherrydale, we know, and Maywood, we know about bond money. It also seemed that this was intended principally for businesses and the government, and I didn't hear too much about the Arlington way of treating individual citizens and property owners that live in Arlington. I don't know if any of you all subscribe to Comcast, but I can tell you that recently, I think it's effective March 1st, the new schedule of fees came in the bill, and if one was not really careful, you could have a $500 a month cable bill.
Gail, thank you. Closing comments.
And I would like them to comment on if they're doing anything to lower the cable bills for the individual citizens. Thank you.
Until Verizon came into the county, we were able to exert some control over the cost of service, over cost of TV service, but only on the basic limited level. That's at that time, it was about a $15 a month level for a limited set of channels. Since Verizon came in, the FCC says that's competition. And under those situations, we have absolutely no price controls. I wish we did. I hear what you say almost daily from other residents, and I feel for you. I also pay for access services myself, and I don't like to see the prices go up. But really, there is no longer anything we can do about it because we have, it's been declared that we have competition, even though when one company raises their rates, not long after the other one does as well.
Okay, well, what a program. I'm struck as I look out on this group here. One little lady in front of me, Martha Ann Miller, we welcomed your 100th birthday last year, and here you are with high technology discussions. God bless you.